3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the Play Show, yet not overly ostentatious studios of CBS Sports Radio in Houston. That's right, the site of the 2024 National Championship game between the Michigan Wolverines and the Washington Huskies. I'm Zach Gelb, taking you all the way up until 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. You could always give us a call, 855-212-4CBS. That's 855-212-4227. You can interact with me via the good old cesspool of Twitter or on Instagram, where I'm always straight flexing at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. We welcome you in today across all the great local CBS Sports Radio affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course, streaming on YouTube, youtube.com/CBS Sports Radio. We have an action-packed show for you today. I have to give you a national championship prediction between Michigan and Washington. I'll be in attendance. That's why I'm here. I'm going to the game. I can't wait. Coming up later tonight, kickoff is at about 7:45 p.m. Eastern. It's also Black Monday. We are finding out coaches who are getting fired, also general managers, speculation, who's going to stay, who's going to go, what's going to happen with Bill Belichick. And in addition to that, we now have the playoffs set in the NFL, the 7 teams in the AFC, the 7 teams in the NFC, and the next month and a half or so, we are football, and more football as we make the dash and we get to the final quarter of the race of the football season as we are dashing to Las Vegas. And the Zach Gelb Show, of course, entire Super Bowl week will be brought live in Sin City, and we'll see who we'll bring along and talk to throughout those 5 glorious shows. Got Moist Mike and also Stuart Kovacs back in our New York City studios, and Jedd Fisch, the head football coach at Arizona, who has done an incredible job turning around that team from 1 win to this past year, just having a very successful season. He has coached up against Michael Penix Jr. twice, with Arizona going up against Washington. And also, he was on the inaugural staff at Michigan when Jim Harbaugh did take over as the head coach of the Wolverines. But we got to start with the NFL, and we got to get into, really yesterday, an enormous domino effect that did occur. And that was the Jacksonville Jaguars, in just disappointing fashion, going down, not really having a pulse up against the Tennessee Titans. And you take a look back at that game, and it just shows you really how much a difference a year makes. A year ago, we were praising the Jaguars. They came back from down 27 points up against the Los Angeles Chargers in the playoffs, right? You had Trevor Lawrence going to the Waffle House after the game. Then they go to Kansas City, and they had a respectable effort up against the Kansas City Chiefs. And when they bowed out in the second round of the playoffs, it was a feeling of optimism. It was a feeling of, okay, you survived the doom and gloom of Urban Meyer. Now you have Doug Peterson, a Super Bowl winning head coach. Okay, you're not going to ruin Trevor Lawrence. You're number 2 for Trevor Lawrence, which has really felt like you're number 1. It was going to be a super duper success. And then this year we were waiting for them to elevate. We were waiting for them to rise. We were waiting for them to be a legit Super Bowl contender. And I remember I was doing a show with Maggie Gray in the summer, and we were doing kind of like, what would you put on the line? How far are you willing to go when you would buy in on team A, B, C, D, whatever it was? And one of the teams came up were the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I said, I think the Jacksonville Jaguars are a dark horse Super Bowl contender. And not only a dark horse Super Bowl contender, I think they could be the number 1 overall seed in the AFC. And it wasn't because I thought they were the best team. It wasn't because I thought they were the preeminent roster in the AFC, but you looked inside the AFC South, Indianapolis was supposed to be bad. The Texans were supposed to be bad. And you knew Tennessee didn't really have much at the quarterback position and was going to continue to be more like the team that we saw at the end of last season rather than the last 3 to 4 years coached by Mike Vrabel. So things were looking up for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And sometimes you make a prediction, and more times than not, you're going to get them wrong. But I have never quickly changed a prediction and pressed the big fat red panic button quicker than I did with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Because all it took was week 2. In week 2, you had a Kansas City Chiefs team going to Duval, a Kansas City Chiefs team that was coming off a loss to the Detroit Lions, and they were just getting Travis Kelce back. They were just getting Chris Jones back. But that Chiefs team, as we've seen now through the entirety of this season, and the Chiefs right now are not a force entering the NFL playoffs, they were vulnerable. And you only scored a lousy 9 points? Alrighty. I pressed the panic button. I said, this team isn't ready to go. I thought they were going to win that game outright. But it's only week 2. They were 1-1. Zach, be fair. Zach, give the Jacksonville Jaguars a chance. And I know the next 2 teams I'm going to mention are the 2 best teams in the NFL right now. But if you were ready to take that next step, if you were ready to soar, if you were ready to fly, you would have found a way to get one victory or at least make it a heck of a close game at least one time up against these next two teams. And let me remind you, both these games that I'm going to talk about in a second were both home games for the Jacksonville Jaguars. They welcomed in the San Francisco 49ers. They got stomped, steamrolled, obliterated, destroyed, 34-3. And then a few weeks later, they welcomed in the Baltimore Ravens, and they lost, I think it was like 24-7. So 3 games, 3 better opponents, all at home in Jacksonville, and it was failure, failure, and more failure. But even with that being said, even though they were not going to ascend, even though they were not going to elevate and improve and exponentially grow from what they did a year before, there was no way they were going to lose this division, right? And that's what they did on the final week of the season. They controlled their own destiny. They were going up against Tennessee, where it was Ryan Tannehill and the last game for Derrick Henry as a member of the Titans. And this was a Tennessee team that really had nothing to play for other than pride. Their season has been over for basically a month. And your franchise quarterback needs to carry that team. And I understand. He's been dealing with injuries. I get that. But to not even show up in the game, or when you're starting to get back into the game after a slow start, and I mean a dreadful, lethargic, putrid start by the Jacksonville Jaguars, you are driving down 8 with your season on the line. You get to 3rd and goal. You're at the 1 yard line. So at the most, you're getting 2 chances to put this sucker in the end zone, get it to a 2-point game, and then you're going to get a 2-point conversion. And you know it, and I know it. You get that touchdown, you get that 2-point conversion, you tie that baby up at 28 apiece, momentum has swung into your favor in a game you had no business being in. You would have been rejuvenated, you would have been alive, and you probably would have ended up winning the game. But Trevor Lawrence, who regressed this year, Trevor Lawrence, who I keep on hearing is a transcendent quarterback, didn't elevate his team in that moment. They threw the ball on 3rd and goal at the 1. And then at 4th and goal on the 1, he audibled out of a run. And he elected to go Air Jordan, Air Lawrence mode, as he tried to go over the top and break the plane from a full yard out. You know, you're a half yard out. I could live with that. A full yard out, that's not a smart decision. And look what happened from that. Not only did the Jaguar season come to a close, it locked in a playoff spot for the Steelers, it locked in a playoff spot for the Bills, and also it allowed the Houston Texans, and we're in Houston right now, to win the division because the night before, the Texans beat the Colts, and we'll get to Shane Steichen's stupidity in just a second. So that one play, that one decision, that one drive was a massive domino effect in Week 18. And I love Trevor Lawrence. You know, I loved watching him at Clemson. I was told for 3 years, generational, transcendent talent. You know, when you hear transcendent talent in the last 20, 25 years coming out of the draft, you think of 18, Peyton Manning, and you also think of Andrew Luck. Those were the 2 guys that everyone was slobbering over and was giving effusive praise to in the draft process. And that hype was met with Trevor Lawrence. And year 1, you could chalk it up to, all righty, it's on Urban Meyer. He was a disaster. Year 2, they meant business. But then in year 3, I understand there were some injuries, but even before the injuries, there were moments to show that you are this transcendent player, and you didn't do that. Now, I'm not going to sit here like some other dopes probably will today and say, oh, Trevor Lawrence isn't the guy. Trevor Lawrence isn't the answer. Trevor Lawrence can't be a franchise quarterback. I'm not going to say that. But what I will say is he's not as good as what they were selling. He's not as good as advertised. And maybe his ceiling is just being very good in this league. Now, I know it's a young career, but I have not seen enough consistent greatness in the first 3 years for me to say that this was a guy that we needed to hear hype about for 3 years, and if he was the second coming of you-know-who. And that was just brutal. And look at what happened right here in Houston. D'Amico Ryans, C.J. Stroud, Will Anderson Jr., they're off to the playoffs. And you know, after year one, that C.J. Stroud is better than advertised. You know that C.J. Stroud is a franchise quarterback. And right now, C.J. Stroud is a better quarterback than Trevor Lawrence. And it ain't even close. C.J. Stroud is not only a top 10 quarterback in this league, he's a top 8, top 7 quarterback in this league, and he's only getting started. And Trevor Lawrence has more talent around him on the offensive side of the ball than C.J. Stroud does with the Houston Texans. And look at the way that C.J. Stroud just changed that organization in 1 year. For Trevor Lawrence, yeah, sure, year one, Urban Meyer disaster. Year two, you make the playoffs. But now, in year three, you're on the outside looking in. And you allowed a rookie quarterback in your own division to get to not only the postseason, but to win your division championship when he had a tougher opponent in Week 18 up against the Indianapolis Colts, and your opponent was a team whose season was over for a month. Extremely disappointed with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Extremely disappointed with Doug Peterson. And most importantly, extremely disappointed and now questioning Trevor Lawrence as a quarterback. Not that he's not good, but what will his apex be? And I was told he was supposed to be a top 3, top 2, maybe even the best quarterback in the league in the foreseeable future when he was drafted. And so far, especially this year, there was just too many moments where in big games, it's not like they got into shootouts. It's not like they were close games and you could blame other areas of the team. The offense in 3 of their biggest games of the season, up against Kansas City, up against the 49ers, up against the Ravens, did nothing. So let's get into Doug Peterson, and let's hear from the coach of the Jaguars, where he mentioned how Trevor Lawrence did audible that play on 4th down, where you saw him try to take off and break the plane from a full yard out. Here's the coach of the Jaguars, Doug Peterson.
He saw something. It wasn't the actual play call, but he saw something there, and he had an opportunity to sneak it. And with his length, usually that works.
Not from a full yard out. I remember seeing Tom Brady. It was a conference championship game against the Baltimore Ravens, 2011, 2012, circa around there. He went over the top, and he broke the plane. It wasn't a full yard out, and he got clobbered by Ray Lewis. That play can be a successful play if it's a half yard out. But when you're a full yard out, I don't care if you're 6'5", 6'6", like Trevor Lawrence is, the odds of you breaking the plane there are slim. And he wasn't even close. And you see it, he was a half yard short. So that would have worked from a half yard out. But from a full yard out, that's your play call? And you elected to pass on 3rd down too? It was nonsensical. It really was. Here's Trevor Lawrence talking about that play as well.
Don't try to take that into my own hands. That's something I got to watch it and make that decision, but it's done now. I made the decision, and they trust me with those things, and it didn't work. So, I got to take accountability for that, and, at the end of the day, it's on me if I decide to do it and don't get in. It's one of those plays, if you do it, you better score, and I didn't, so it's unfortunate.
At least he takes the accountability. Some other quarterbacks, cough, Zach Wilson last year, they would blame other people. But, man, the Jaguars are just a complete and utter disappointment this year. And if it wasn't for the Chargers, and maybe the Seahawks too, I would say they're the most disappointing team in football. But then after that, it's got to be the Jaguars. I would say the Jaguars are more disappointing than the Seahawks. Because even though I thought the Seahawks would be the 3rd best team in the NFC before the start of the season, I didn't think the Seahawks had a ceiling like Jacksonville did, especially what they started to build a year ago. And to see them regress this year, next year is going to be all hands on deck, and it's going to be a massive year. It's a massive year for the quarterback who's waiting to get an extension. And even though I love Doug Peterson as a coach, and we know he coached his ass off, seeing what he did in Philadelphia without a quarterback once Carson Wentz got hurt, and then you got Nick Foles, right? And it was just a quarterback, a musical chair of quarterbacks eventually Jalen Hurts too, in Philadelphia. This is one of those years next year where it seems like the direction of the franchise is extremely under question, and now we're going to see how the Jaguars respond, because it's been one good year and then one really severely disappointing season for the Jaguars. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. I'm in Houston for the national championship game tonight between Michigan and Washington. A man that knows both these programs well is the head coach at Arizona. He's Jedd Fisch, and he'll join us on the other side.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining.
1
30 seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
You can stream the NFL on Westwood One for free, sponsored by AutoZone all season long. You can listen to every Westwood One broadcast of the NFL Live on the NFL app by asking Alexa to open Westwood One Sports or on the Odyssey app. Get in the zone, AutoZone. AutoZone's free battery testing and charging is available for free at your local AutoZone. Get in the zone, AutoZone. Restrictions apply. Alrighty, this is Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. We're live in Houston for the national championship game tonight between Washington and Michigan at NRG Stadium. And my next guest knows both of these programs very well. He is the head coach at Arizona. What a success story they've been, from 1 win to 5 wins and then 10 wins this past season. And he's Jedd Fisch, kind enough to join us via Zoom. Coach, appreciate the time as always. Thanks so much. Congrats on an excellent season. How you been?
Great. I appreciate you having me on, and looking forward to tonight's game for sure. And then also looking forward to getting back with my team here in 2 days and starting our 24 Odyssey.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me start you off with your squad. I love when coaches come on in, and a lot of times patience isn't given, but you've gotten some patience and you've seen some results and growth from year 1 to year 2, and then you had such an awesome year 3. Just take me through your philosophy on how you were able to kind of build this program and get them moving back in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, when we got here, we took over a program that was on a 12-game losing streak and lost by 9 touchdowns to their rival in the last game they played in 2020. And we felt we needed to not just rebuild, we needed to start from scratch. And we laid the foundation and the bricks, and we said, hey, we're in a situation that this is not year 1, this is year 0. And we got to figure out what we need to do. We got to understand our roster. I didn't kick one player off the team. I signed 2 recruits. I said, we're going to figure out what we have here with the 85 players. Brought in about 6-7 transfers that were available at the time late in the game. And we realized we weren't good enough. We were a 1-11 football team. We played some games close. And then we really committed to that year of recruiting, that class of 2022, both transfers and high school kids, changed the program. And we went 5-7, and everybody returned. We added to that group. We didn't lose anyone from that group. We and then went 10-3 this year and won 7 in the last 7 in a row. And I feel really good. We didn't lose any starters in the transfer portal. We didn't lose any backups in the transfer portal. And I think we should have a really good team with 18 returning starters for next year.
And it's not easy what you were able to do, because I was at Temple, and I remember seeing Matt Rule build that program up from nothing to then having College Game Day come to Philadelphia. But now that would never be able to happen at a university like Temple because of the NIL, transfer portal as well. I know Arizona has a bigger brand, and you guys got some good weather out there. But to be able to go through some rough times and get that buy-in from the players where not only they trusted you, but you trusted them so quickly, it's really a testament to not only you, but your entire staff, how you were able to build that so quickly.
Yeah, our staff did an amazing job. I mean, we don't have some of the NIL resources that some of these other programs do. And some teams want to try to come in and pluck your players and take your players. What you got to do is you got to be able to fight them off with creativity. And I always tell our kids, hey, we're not going to sell you on NIL. We're going to sell you on NFL. And I've got 13 years of experience coaching in the NFL. I've coordinated in the NFL and coached positions and quarterbacks and wide receivers for Mike Shanahan and Bill Belichick and Sean McVay. And we're going to teach you how to do it right. And we're going to ask you to trust us and believe in us and to have a little delayed gratification. And if you can do that, I think it's going to work out. And our kids so far, for the most part, have done it. and believed in us.
Jedd Fisch, did you have to change anything when you got the head coaching job at Arizona with maybe understanding the transfer portal now? Did you have to change your philosophy in coaching at all? Or have you always been the same coach that you've been throughout this journey?
Yeah, I've tried not to change it. I've felt that our best bet is for me to be the genuine me and our staff to be the genuine them and be honest. We've always been honest. Be family-based. We're always family-based. Our kids are everywhere in our building at all times. And we want our players to understand, like, this is a 4-year window in your life. This is not your end-all, be-all. This isn't the very, very last part of your career. So let's do the most amazing job of creating a 4-year window that's phenomenal for you. Now, when you're coaching in the NFL, your job is to get these guys the most amount of money possible, because this is the end of their playing career when they're in the NFL, and you have to help them become as good as they can be. But in college, to me, it's still about relationships, and it's still about helping them build for the future.
Talking to the head coach of Arizona and Jedd Fisch, kind enough to join us right now. National championship game tonight. You did go up against Michael Penix Jr. this year and also last year as well. He's been sensational along with Kalen DeBoer at Washington. Since you had that NFL background as well and knowing the college game too, being at Arizona, with all of the information and resources that you have, when you kind of put on that scouting brain and you kind of look at Michael Penix Jr., what do you think he could be at the next level? Because it's weird. This guy's been dominating the last 2 years, and I think nationally now a lot of people are finally starting to say, wow, I can't believe this guy's actually a pretty damn good quarterback.
Yeah, I've played him twice, so know him pretty well. He's thrown for last year. We lost 49-39, and he threw for 500 yards, and Jayden DeLora threw for 400 yards, and they had 8 touchdowns together. And then this past season, we lost 31-24, and he threw for 350, and Noah Fafita threw for about 280. And so I've seen him. I've seen him throw the ball all over the yard. And this kid is a special kid. Reminds me of Tua, not just because he's lefty, but because of his ability to anticipate throws. He doesn't need to have the strongest arm intermediate in the world. But what he does do is he throws a deep ball beautifully. He understands how not to get sacked. He understands how not to throw interceptions and be a great decision maker. And he seems very likable. All those are the traits you want in an NFL quarterback. So I'm excited to watch him. And then obviously I'm biased towards Michigan. As I worked for Coach Harbaugh. I was his coordinator, his quarterback coach, his wide receiver coach. And when his first couple of years at Michigan, and I have a very close bond with him. So certainly excited to see them play tonight.
What's your biggest takeaway? You've been around some big-time legendary coaches, working with Jim Harbaugh at Ann Arbor. What's your biggest takeaway from what you're able to learn from him?
The man is all about football and family. Everything you see is real. Everything you hear is real. The genuineness just spews out. So when he makes a comment like, when you ask about my future and he says, I'm all for it, he means it. That's his, that's who he is. He's not going to sit there and pontificate and give you a million answers on things that are irrelevant. In his mind, he's going to tell you about what's going to help his football team win games. He's going to run staff meetings the same way, team meetings the same way. And it's about winning. With Jim, it's about winning and everything he does. And I respect him so much. I love the guy, his family, and my family are close. But in the end, I just am such a fan of Coach Harbaugh and what he's done at Michigan.
You got any inside scoop for us? Because I've been predicting all year that this was going to be his last year at Michigan, and he's going back to the NFL, Coach.
I don't know. I think if he wins the national championship, it's hard not to want to win a Super Bowl. But who knows? I don't know what he's going to do. There's only 32 of those jobs in the world. They're pretty impressive, and they're pretty exciting opportunities to have. But I'm sure he's going to have his pick of the litter, and he also can stay at Michigan and be an icon there, which he is already.
So I see this game tonight from a very basic way. Maybe you have more of an in-depth view of it with your coaching background. Jedd Fisch, the head coach of Arizona, here with us. I think the biggest key tonight is just Michigan to do what they do best, and that's run the football and dominate the time of possession with guys like Blake Corum, who's a stud, and Donovan Edwards as well, because you know how great Michael Penix Jr. could be. Even though Michigan has a really good defense, I think their best defense tonight is keeping him on the sideline and using that run game all night long.
Yeah, I would think that that's definitely a good approach in the game. I think if you go into the game and you don't think to yourself like, hey, I've got to outscore Washington, that's your best strategy. If you go into the game saying, we're going to make them go the long way, we're going to see if we can control the time of possession. We had 30 minutes. They had 29-58 or something like that, and we had 30-02 in our game against them this year. And it was 31-24. And that's what you want to do. And I think Michigan, the way they run the football, they're going to try to get to 36 minutes, 37 minutes of time of possession. And if they can do that, then they'll feel really good about their chances. You just can't turn it over. You can't give them a short field, and you can't let Washington hit too many big plays. They're going to hit some, but you just can't let them hit too many, because if they hit too many, then they're tough to beat, as the last 20 opponents can attest.
Let me just preference my next question by saying I don't believe this will be the case, but there are some people that share the sentiment that even if Michigan wins tonight, they would view this as a tainted championship, which I think is so lame because of this sign-stealing scandal, which I think has been so blown out of proportion. Michigan wins tonight. How would you respond to people that say that this is a tainted championship?
I'd say if Michigan wins tonight, they're the national champions, and they're 15-0. Is that what their record would be?
Yeah.
I think, right? They're 14-0 right now. I think if Michigan wins tonight, there is no question that they're the best team in America. They're the best college football team, and they would be the national champions with no asterisk in my mind.
Jedd Fisch, I want to just ask you about some of the other coaches you were with. What do you take away from your time with Sean McVay?
Well, I mean, hats off to Sean. I mean, Sean, they were 3-6 this year, and they've gone 7-1. Sean's awesome. He's an unbelievable friend, unbelievable coach, and understands how to communicate with players as good or better than anybody in America. Players will play for him. Players love him. And his ability to be honest and be a great strategist, but to be honest with players is awesome.
And that's going to be some scene this upcoming weekend where you have Matthew Stafford, right, won a Super Bowl with the Rams, but started his career with the Lions. You have the Lions who are humming. They're looking for their first playoff win since 1991. As a football fan, I can't wait to see how that goes down between Dan Campbell and Sean McVay.
Yeah, and between Jared Goff and Matthew Stafford. I mean, it's the double whammy. It's the both quarterbacks. When I was at the Rams in 2018 and 2019, Goff was our quarterback and went to the Super Bowl. So I'm sure that's going to be a big deal for everybody. It's going to be a great football game for sure. Can't wait to watch that one.
How do you view Jared Goff? Because that's always like it has conflicting emotions from so many people on their view of Jared Goff. I don't think he's a polarizing guy, but whenever people talk about Jared Goff, it turns into a polarizing conversation.
Yeah, I think he's uber talented, tough as nails, stands in the pocket. You watch him in the pocket and you see guys just falling at his legs, kind of going through his body, and he just stands in there and rips the ball around. Unbelievable arm, smart, very, very, very smart. And, I can't thank him enough for my 2 years with him. We were 15-3. It was an awesome year in 2018. And then in 2019, we came back and I think we were 9-7. So, my 2 years were 24-10. I've been to a Super Bowl with him, and I just think he's a special player, as is Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, last thing I'll ask you, Coach Jedd Fisch. So you've coached against Bill Belichick. You coach with Bill Belichick. It's all up in the air about his future in New England. He's been there for 24 years as the head coach. We know, right, he's the definition of what a head coach is, and he's been so successful and maybe the most successful head coach of all time. Could you envision Belichick not in New England next year? Because that's been a thought for a lot of people, not only this week, but really for the last month.
Well, he's the definition of the GOAT. There's no question in my mind about that. So if somebody, if they make a decision for him to move on and he chooses to go elsewhere, or if someone chooses for him to go elsewhere, I know that whatever team he goes to will be awfully fortunate. If he stays in New England, they're awfully fortunate. And you're talking about the greatest coach of all time. It's been a tough year. Everybody has one. But the difference between him and everybody else is he's had one. And, maybe you could say his first year in New England, they went 5-11. Last year, maybe they were 8-9 or something like that with a couple 1-point losses. But you look at his body of work in 24 years, and what else do you ever want from a coach?
Well, Coach, hats off to you. Once again, congratulations. You've done an incredible job with Arizona. Enjoy the game tonight. Appreciate you doing this. We'll talk to you down the road.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
You got it. There he is, Jedd Fisch, doing an incredible job at Arizona, from 1 win to 5 wins to now 10 wins. I love to see a coach be able to grow and rebuild a program like that, which is not easy to do, especially with the transfer portal and now in an era of name, image, and likeness. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We'll take a break. We do the segment every Monday and Friday. We'll do so on the other side. It's called Onside Offside. Samter has a few questions for me. I'll give you a few answers when we return. But first up, let's send it back to our New York City studios. And standing by with the latest CBS Sports Radio update is the Act Man, Rich Ackerman.
Sports Flag.
And it's sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Looking for a career path with flexibility and great pay and benefits? Go to progressive.com/careers and apply online today. For many of those that didn't make the playoffs, there are changes. It's not known just how many the Patriots will go through. For now, Bill Belichick remains coach, but is going to give up some of his front office control if he stays in that spot. The Falcons made the first postseason move last night, firing Arthur Smith, and the Commanders follow today, canning Ron Rivera after 4 seasons. The move comes as no surprise between the change in ownership and the 4-win season. The Panthers looking for a coach and a new GM as well, dismissing Scott Fitterer, and the Giants are in the market for a defensive coordinator, with Wink Martindale reportedly resigning. Bills receiver Gabe Davis suffered a sprained left knee last night. His status for Wild Card Weekend is still to be determined, and Dan Campbell said there's an outside chance that Lions tight end Sam Laporta plays in the Wild Card round. Black Monday overshadows the college football national championship, but Washington and Michigan will take center stage tonight in Houston. The Dodgers have reportedly signed free agent Teoscar Hernandez to a 1-year deal. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Hey, this is JR. Let's hang out weeknights here on CBS Sports Radio for my show, The JR Sport Brief, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
The Zach Gelb Show is on the air across the nation on CBS Sports Radio.
Let's just say I'm an NFL GM, and I call you up and I go, Kalen DeBoer, I'm thinking about using an early first-round pick on Michael Penix Jr. Why should I use it?
He throws a ball that he can throw it wherever he wants, as far down the field. He throws a really catchable ball. The receivers just get these balls that are nice. Ball placement is elite. He processes things very quickly. I think all that's applicable to be able to make that transition to the next level.
Here's Zach Gelb.
It's time to Ask the Pros, where you, the listener, gets to ask us a question. It's brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Simply tweet your question at CBS Sports Radio or at Zach Gelb using the hashtag Ask the Pros. Be listening later in the show when we might answer your question. You can thank O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Before we get to onside offside, so I've made it to Houston. We're here for the national championship game tonight, Washington and Michigan. I did Eye on Football yesterday for 8 hours. I got home. I watched the Dolphins-Bills game. Tua throw a late interception. Josh Allen looked like he was on the brinks of just being a turnover machine. And then he pulls a rabbit out of the hat and goes back to being the great Josh Allen that we're all accustomed to seeing on a football field. And that's just a roller coaster ride of emotions when you watch Josh Allen. And then I probably got to bed last night at 1:30. Alarm went off at 5 a.m. Eastern. Got to the airport, and the only thing I asked for was no delays. So I would like to thank United. They got me here at Houston. No delays. Now, this trip came about rather last second. Got the credential. Going to the game on a credential. We'll get all the behind-the-scenes stuff tonight. You can follow me on social media, Instagram and Twitter, at Zach Gelb, ZachGelb. So I did a economy ticket because that's all that was left. Like usually I would, not that I'm flying first class or business class or anything like that, but usually I would be able to pick my seat. I was not able to pick my seat, and as a 6'4", 6'5" guy when they make you basically like the frosting of an Oreo and sandwich you in a middle seat. That was not a pleasant 4-hour flight. But for some reason, Samter, maybe I'm weird this way. Whenever I get on a plane, I think about what life would be like if this was it on the plane and I'd have to come back reincarnated. And I have two answers on what I would like to be if I happen to pass away and some reason they decide to recreate me and put me in somebody else's body. I would love to be Kirk Herbstreit's dog because that dog goes everywhere and it's a beautiful, I think it's a golden retriever, and it goes to every big game, and it'll be at the national championship game tonight, and it was at the Rose Bowl last week. You also want to know what else I would love to be too, Samter? I would love to be a backup quarterback. And if you need any further explanation on that, all you need to do is look at Jake Browning. Because Jake Browning makes a good living, rarely has to play when the quarterback goes down, then he gets a chance to go run with it and did an admirable job. And you got to see who was cheering on Jake Browning. I don't know if that's his girlfriend or his wife in Joe Burrow's suite as he keeps on renting it out or giving it out to Jake Browning's family. Hello, it's a pretty good life to be a backup quarterback in the NFL. So either Kirk Herbstreit's pup, or I would rather want to be a backup quarterback in the NFL, Samter. If you could come on back and live another life, who would you want to be? Just wondering.
I also am never going to fly on a plane with you again if that's what you're thinking about before every flight.
Well, the only reason I thought that is because years ago when we were going to Radio Row, Boomer Esiason and Phil Simms were on the plane. And Al Dukes, the producer of Boomer and Geo at the time, Boomer and Cardin, tweeted out, if this plane goes down, it's going to be Phil Simms, Boomer Esiason, and 150 others die on this flight. So that's why, for some reason, ever since that tweet that I saw, and it kind of blew up on social media, I've always been thinking about that. And also, did you see the part of a plane last week, a window busted open during a flight, and they had to emergency land it? So I was just thinking about things when I was on that plane today. And also, I was not in a great mood because I was sandwiched in between a middle seat, and I don't think that was comfortable for anybody. The people to my left, the people to my right, or me in the middle. It was not fun.
Well, as far as where you want to be reincarnated, you got the wrong position in football. For me, it's all about the punter, right? Most of these guys are making over $2 million a year. They do nothing. They barely have to practice. There's no pressure on them whatsoever, unlike a kicker who has to miss a kick or whatever. Punters have no pressure. You basically get to punt until you're 40, until your leg falls off. You never
but if
get
you're
hit.
not McAfee,
You never get
it's
hurt.
really not cool.
You never have any pressure, and you get all the money and all the benefits of flying around. Nobody recognizes the punter. I couldn't name, outside of Pat McAfee, I couldn't tell you the face of a single punter in the NFL. So you don't have the to deal with all the fans and being bothered at dinner or lunch. So give me punter, and that's the way I want to go.
Guess Samter wasn't a fan of Ken Walter and Sean Landetta many years ago. Anyway.
I'm sure they were fine. No idea what they look like.
Let's quickly breeze through onside, offside. Stu, hit it.
Zach's taking on the most polarizing issues in sports. Which side of the line of scrimmage will he end up on?
Offside. Defense number 69.
It's Onsides, Offsides with Zach Gelb on CBS Sports Radio.
All righty, Moist Mike, what do you got cooking for me?
Well, the Steelers, once again, they finished 10-7, made the playoffs, extending Mike Tomlin's insane streak of consecutive non-losing seasons to 17 straight. It's insane. However, Tomlin hasn't won a playoff game since 2016.
Yeah, you also had a stupid rant on CBS Sports Radio of Shep trying to say that he'd rather have Tomlin than Belichick for his career, too.
I mean, it's the same kind of Popovich versus Phil Jackson conversation. The guy who has the resume or the guy who's done it with a variety of different talent without needing the superstars. But who knows?
Belichick's 10-3 against Tomlin. Beat him this year with some crappy team. But
now, onside, offside. If Tomlin goes one and done again, the Steelers should look for a new coach in 2024.
I'm going to go offside. I know Schefter was talking yesterday how I guess Tomlin has a year left on the contract and maybe he will eventually want to move on. But if they lose this playoff game to the Bills this weekend, I don't think people are going to... I would not be advocating for Mike Tomlin to be fired. So I would go offside there.
Offside.
Now, speaking of the Steelers, every team in the AFC North finished above 500, with 3 of them making the playoffs. The Bengals were the only team left out, but finishing 9-8 without Burrow does feel like a win. So onside, offside, the Bengals will be Super Bowl contenders again when Joe Burrow returns.
Absolutely. I know T. Higgins probably won't be there next year. Jamar Chase will. The number one thing, as we've seen, it comes down to the health of Joe Burrow. You keep Joe Burrow healthy, You will be in a Super Bowl. You will be in an AFC championship game, but you got to keep your quarterback healthy. And now 2 years, unfortunately, he's been lost for the season. So the Bengals are still a Super Bowl contender when Joe Burrow returns. Absolutely onside.
Saquon Barkley hits yet another offseason with question marks around his future in Big Blue. And the former number 2 overall pick admitted the idea of being franchise tagged again, quote, makes him numb. Onside, offside, the Giants should franchise Saquon once again.
No, I think you either got to give him a long-term extension or you got to let him go, even though you would only get a compensatory pick back for Saquon Barkley. And I kind of lean more so on the side of that the Giants let him go this offseason rather than commit a big investment to Saquon. They got a lot of building to do. There's not a lot of pieces. I know you have a good left tackle. You got Kayvon Thibodeau, but there's not a lot of pieces to build with the Giants. And yeah, you want the success that you had a year ago, but then that expedites your rebuild process. You don't have enough talent to maintain where you were a year ago, and that's why you saw regression with the Giants this year. But I don't think it would be smart to franchise tag this and have both parties not really happy. So the Giants should franchise tag Saquon Barkley again. I would go offside. It's either get a long-term deal done or let him go elsewhere.
Offside. Now the Colts missed the playoffs, finishing 9-8, despite losing Anthony Richardson earlier in the year. Gardner Minshew finished 7-6 as a starter with 15 touchdowns, 9 picks, but enters the offseason as a free agent. Onside, offside, Minshew should stay in Indy as their backup rather than looking for a starter role somewhere else.
I think Gardner Minshew can be an okay starter in this league. Anthony Richardson is going to be their starting quarterback next year. Now, he gets hurt once again. You have a chance to come off the bench. But if a team tells you that you have a legitimate chance to compete for the starting job and you think you have the leg up on that starting job, I would not say you stay as a backup. So Minshew should stay in Indy as their backup rather than look for a starter role somewhere else. I would go offside on that one.
Offside.
Now, as Jim Harbaugh prepares for tonight's national title game, rumors swirl that he's interested in getting back in the NFL and has, quote, mutual interest with the Raiders and is also interested in the Chargers. Now, fans in Vegas were chanting for Antonio Pierce yesterday, while Devontae Adams made it clear he also wants Pierce. So onside, offside, considering the fans and the players all want Pierce, the Raiders should stick with him even if they can land Harbaugh.
If they could land Harbaugh, you hire Harbaugh. If you can't land Harbaugh, then you hire Antonio Pierce. So the Raiders should stick with Pierce even if they can land Harbaugh. Unfortunately, I would go offside. Jim is a better coach.
Offside.
Last one of the final week of the season, we saw some playoff-bound stars get hurt, including Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown for the Eagles, Sam Laporta for the Lions, and T.J. Watt for the Steelers. Onside, offside, these injuries reinforce the idea of resting starters, even if you're trying for a better seed.
Yeah, I would go offside on this one because it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you play people, they get hurt, everyone says you shouldn't have played them. Then, if you don't play them, and they're rusty the following week or 2 weeks after that, then everyone said, oh, what were you doing resting your starters? So the injuries that we saw this past weekend, even though they stink, reinforce the idea of resting starters even if you are trying for a better seed. I would go offside on that one. Zach Gelb here with you, CBS Sports Radio in Houston. Get ready for the national championship. We'll take a look at Black Monday when we return after these short messages.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty, live from Houston for the national championship game tonight. Zach Gelb here with you on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We're getting you set for Michigan and Washington. Jim Harbaugh, Kalen DeBoer, Michael Penix Jr., J.J. McCarthy, Blake Corum, and so many more. And I can't wait to be at NRG Stadium to see how this game does play out. Really, these have been my two favorite teams in the country this year. You guys know I'm a Michigan fan, so you know where I'm pulling for tonight. But we've had a good relationship with Kalen DeBoer. I've been talking about Kalen DeBoer, and I've had him on this show before anyone even knew who Kalen DeBoer was. And it's pretty neat that tonight everyone's going to find out the story of Kalen DeBoer with all the NAIA championships. Then also when he was a baseball player. He had a .520 average in his senior season, which is just craziness. And then he also led the football team in career receiving yards, career receptions, and then also career receiving touchdowns as well. Eventually gets a job at Fresno State, has one good season. I think it was a 9-win season at Fresno State. And then he made that into the Washington job, where the last 2 years he's only had 2 losses, and both those losses have been by 8 points or less. And Washington's been a team that they've been disrespected all throughout the year. They were my pick before the season started to win the Pac-12, and even with how optimistic I was with them, I did not pick them to be one of the 4 teams remaining. I thought we were going to get 2 teams in the SEC. I thought we were going to get 2 teams from the Big Ten in the college football playoff before the season did start. And all throughout this process, whether it was down the stretch, people saying, oh, Michael Penix Jr. isn't as good as what the stats says they are. All their defense isn't that good, even though their defense improved and did a 180 in the final 5-6 games of the season. And, the receiver, Rome Odunze, is absolutely sensational. He'll be a top 10, top 15 pick in this upcoming draft. And through all of this, when they were a 9.5-point underdog in the Pac-12 championship game, or earlier in the year, they beat Oregon by 3 points. And then you also did have the game last week against Texas, where that was just easy money when the Longhorns were a 4.5-point favorite, which I couldn't believe. This has just been a team in Washington. They've been disrespected, quite frankly, all throughout the year, and it should shock nobody at this point, with 60 minutes left in the college football season, if they walk away and win the national championship tonight. And then on the other side with Michigan, they've been the most polarizing team in the country. There's no other way to say it. Now, I think, and I know people who say, oh, Zach, you're a Michigan fan, blah, 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 blah. But I said, this other times before with other scandals. I think the sign-stealing scandal has been so overblown. I'm not saying there shouldn't have been a punitive action. I said that from the start. There needs to be a punitive action. But I don't think this was life or death as what people made it out to be. And I do think it's lame tonight that if you're a media member or you're a columnist, you're a talk show host, and I think it's very lazy radio, lazy writing, if you go, up Michigan, this championship is tainted. And here's why I vehemently disagree with that. Take aside my Michigan fandom and the fact that my 2 best friends went to Michigan, and the Michigan program has been kind to us. We've had Roman Wilson on. We've had Blake Corum on. We've had Chris Jenkins on. Rod Moore as well throughout the years. Colston Loveland. But you look at it, everything has been even right now. Like, you could say what they did in the past, you could call that into question. None of those games really matter. Like, this regular season, up until Penn State, when everything was clean and they took Harbaugh off the sideline, that was their first game of the regular season. And they beat Penn State. They said, we're going to bully ball you. We're going to line you up. We're going to dominate with our offensive line, which is not even as good as the offensive line as what they've had the last 2 years, and you won't be able to stop our run game. They threw the ball 1 time in the second half, and it was a penalty, so technically they didn't even throw the ball in the second half. Then they go up against Ohio State, and they did what good teams do. They took advantage of a average, maybe at best above average quarterback in Kyle McCord, and picked him off twice in the game. And with their run game, also dialing up a nice J.J. McCarthy throw to Roman Wilson, they beat the Ohio State Buckeyes, who really had one player play a major factor in the game, and that was Marvin Harrison Jr. You know what I think of Marvin Harrison Jr.? I think the world of Marvin Harrison Jr. So if you want to call into question the last few years, be my guest. But you have seen now, with no sign stealing, them beat Penn State, beat Ohio State, beat Big Bad Alabama, and now tonight they're in the national championship game. And this game scares the crap out of me. I'll give you my official prediction later. But I think these two teams are so even. They are so close. And they are both so good. Like, sometimes you get into a national championship game, and you know one team is vastly superior than the other. I think we are going to get a classic of a national championship game tonight. I would be really surprised tomorrow, one way or another, whether it's a Washington blowout or a Michigan blowout, if we're talking about a game that was a dud and we're talking about a game that is a blowout. The only way that happens, and this could happen in a big spot, is because of injuries. But I'm not going to sit here and predict injuries. I think that's stupid when people do it, because it's just a guessing game, and, you know, it's just a luck game of who could stay healthy and then who gets hurt. But this is just a phenomenal football game on paper. These have been the two best teams in the country, and I can't wait to see how it's going to play on out tonight. And last time I was in Houston, and the last time I was at NRG Stadium, it was actually for 28-3. Patriots and the Falcons. And that was just the greatest live sporting event that I've ever seen in my life. And I've had a pleasure to be at a bunch. Stanley Cup hockey, NCAA tournament basketball games, Super Bowl, college football games, World Series games. I have been fortunate enough through this job and being an avid sports fan as well to be at some pretty big events. But nothing is crazier than a team being down, especially when it's my team, a team being down 28-3 in a Super Bowl and then coming on back. So Zach Gelb making his triumphant return tonight to NRG Stadium to see this battle between Michigan and Washington. And I'll give you an official prediction coming up later. All righty, NFL hot seat time. We all know today's Black Monday. It's not been as active as what we have seen in years past. There are a lot of to be determined kind of speculation. Is Mike Vrabel going to survive? Is Bill Belichick going to survive? Could Mike McCarthy maybe get let go if the Cowboys are one and done? But we already had 3 coaches get fired in season. You had the Los Angeles Chargers with Brandon Staley, who should have never been back this year. And that's not revisionist history. This is not, just because this year was a disaster, now I'm saying it after weeks that he got fired. I was in Colorado visiting my sister, visiting my niece, visiting my brother-in-law, and I remember walking outside and recording a video saying, you got to get rid of Brandon Staley when they choked away that playoff game up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And you got to bring in Sean Payton, who wanted the job. And it wasn't a matter of if Brandon Staley was going to get fired this year. It was just when. And it didn't even last the entire season. And that team wasn't even competitive because down deep they knew their coach wasn't the right guy. And everyone could see it coming from a mile away. And when your players see it, but your ownership doesn't see it, that's what makes a really messy situation. Then you had Josh McDaniels, whom I saw Josh McDaniels was at the Patriot game yesterday. I did not physically see him, on TV or something like that, but it was reported that he was walking into the stadium. And our stringer for Eye on Football and Siegel said, maybe he could be replacing Bill Belichick. Stu, I want you to hear this crystal clear because I like Josh McDaniels as an offensive coordinator. But as a head coach, you know this. Broncos fans know this. And Stu's a Raiders fan, so that's why obviously I say Stu knows this. He is an incompetent buffoon and has no people skills as a head coach. The only thing Josh McDaniels should be moving forward is an offensive coordinator. If Robert Kraft says we're going to get rid of Bill Belichick, and let's say they can't get Mike Vrabel, let's say Gerard Mayo gets a job somewhere else, and they say, okay, we are rocking and rolling with Josh McDaniels, I think my head would explode on CBS Sports Radio if I got that news. And then also, we know the Frank Reich experience was a disaster because of a petulant brat in David Tepper, and now the Carolina Panthers job is open as well. So those 3 jobs were already open, and Antonio Pierce has done a great job as an interim coach. There's no interim success set up in Carolina or LA to begin with. There was a chance for Antonio Pierce to succeed. He finished above 500. Now the question just becomes with Antonio Pierce, is there anyone else out there that Mark Davis is going to get oohed and odd by? That's going to wine and dine, with Mark Davis, and then Mark Davis is going to say, I want to make you the head coach. Because remember a few years ago, Rich Bisaccia replaced John Gruden in season. A few games into the season, the Raiders not only made the playoffs, but they almost beat the Cincinnati Bengals who ended up going to the Super Bowl. And Bisaccia didn't get the job. A lot of players wanted him to get the job. And then the job eventually did go to Josh McDaniels, and here we are 2.5 years later, and it's been a complete and utter disaster. So I keep on saying this. I've been saying this now for 3 weeks. Antonio Pierce reminds me a lot like Dan Campbell. It takes a special person. I think it takes someone that is not that far removed from his playing days, can relate to the players, to turn around an organization that has just been a dumpster fire like the Lions have been and like the Raiders have been. And I would make Antonio Pierce the head coach. And the only way I wouldn't is if Jim Harbaugh wants to get the job. And I know we just talked about this a little bit earlier, but there are reports out there that the Raiders are interested in Harbaugh and Harbaugh's interested in the Raiders. I don't know if the Raiders is the best job for Harbaugh, I think there could be better jobs out there for him. Cough, cough, like in that division, the Chargers. Because the Chargers have a ton of talent, and they have a quarterback. The Raiders don't have a quarterback. But you never know, especially like a strange kind of bird and a strange guy that Jim Harbaugh is. You never know what he's going to prioritize. Is it money? Is it who has a roster that he can control? Is it quarterback? Or is it a blend maybe of all the above? And we kind of like looked at this with, DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins, listed out that he wanted to be a number one wide receiver still. He wanted to go to a winner. He listed out a bunch of reasons. And ultimately, DeAndre Hopkins wanted to go where the most money was, and that's why he ended up in Tennessee. So you could say you have a priority list and all things are equal and you're looking for three things, but ultimately one priority is going to prevail over the other two, and you're probably not going to get all three things that you do set your sight out for. And I got to think there's going to be a more attractive job than the Raiders, but you never know. Like Harbaugh, he operates at a different level than most people. He is a strange guy. He is a unique guy. So maybe he ends up taking the Raiders job, and he's taking an NFL job. Like, I do not believe Jim Harbaugh is back at Michigan next year. The only way he is back is if he does not get offered an NFL head coaching job. And we've been through this song and dance before the last 2 years, and he wasn't offered a job. I would be shocked. Seriously, my jaw would hit the floor if Jim Harbaugh is not offered a job this hiring cycle. Alrighty, adding to the vacancies, the Atlanta Falcons. Arthur Blank, let me give you a round of applause. Seriously. Arthur Blank, 2 thumbs up, getting rid of Arthur Smith. So you kind of got that impression 3 weeks ago when Arthur Blank didn't give a ringing endorsement and kind of just talked his way through the answer. Oh, we'll evaluate, we'll wait and see at the end of the season when it comes to Arthur Smith. But Arthur Smith has, I talked earlier in the show how the Jaguars and the Chargers are my 2 most disappointing teams. The Falcons are not that far behind. And I don't know if there's a coach this year that I was more disappointed in than Arthur Smith. Because I was believing in the Falcons this year. I thought the Falcons, not that they were going to be like 11, 12-win team, but I thought they could win a bad division in the NFC South because of guys like Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and a young and improved defense with also a new defensive coordinator. But my problem with Arthur Smith was his arrogance. My problem with Arthur Smith was not keeping it simple. And he looked very stupid at times because he was trying to make Desmond Ridder a franchise quarterback when he needed Desmond Ridder to be a game manager. And Desmond Ridder displayed that he couldn't even be a game manager, but you were asking him to do a lot more than what should have been expected out of Desmond Ridder. And then we get to yesterday. The Saints are running up the score. I'm going to be consistent. I'm going to be fair here. I don't care when you are an NFL team. This is not Pee Wee football. This is not JV9 football. This is not junior varsity football. This is the NFL. These are professionals. Don't give me this nonsense about sportsmanship and class, blah, 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 bull bleep. So I get it. The Saints were about to run a victory formation play. You don't think they're actually going to give the ball to Jamal Williams. Clearly, Jameis Winston, he was operating rogue, and he said, no, we're going to do this, and we're going to give the ball to Jamal Williams and get his first touchdown of the season. And so what? Like, you may not like it. Like, Arthur Smith may be annoyed. He clearly was. But you know that your job is on the line. And you're going to conduct yourself after you just got your ass handed to you in the second half. Because that was a 17-17 game at halftime. And you walk to midfield, and you're wagging your finger in Dennis Allen's face, who just kicked your ass, and you're yelling at him and mother bleeping him and cursing him out? You kidding me? And Dennis Allen, could you have some cojones too? After the game, you apologize? Apologize for what? I don't care whose decision it was. You don't apologize in that spot. But if you didn't know Arthur Smith was going to get fired, you knew he was going to get fired after the game at midfield, because that is a dead man walking when you're freaking out after you getting blown out in this game and getting your tuchus handed to you. You're all annoyed because they ran up the score and scored an extra touchdown. And I said this yesterday on Football. I'll say it again. That's why Arthur Smith's a loser. He's just a loser. So the Falcons job is open. And I'll say this too. I think this is an attractive job. The Pats want to get rid of Belichick. Would not surprise me if he winds up with the Atlanta Falcons. They need a quarterback. But they have some good young foundational pieces. And you're in a division where, congratulations to Tampa Bay. They win the division. I don't know what their future is. The Saints have hitched their wagon to Derek Carr. Good luck. And the Carolina Panthers right now have the biggest disaster of an owner in the NFL, in David Tepper. So I think the Falcons are an attractive job. Now, the Commanders open up as well. I think they were just being classy the last 4 or 5 weeks because Ron Rivera had to put up with Dan Snyder. And I do believe that Josh Harris did respect that. He didn't think there was an advantage to fire Ron Rivera in season. Ron Rivera, I know him well. He's been on this show a bunch. He's one of the classiest guys that you'll ever meet. But the game has passed him by. And that Commander's job, I do think it's attractive for 3 reasons. 1, Snyder's no longer there. 2, you have the number 2 overall pick. And if the Bears don't keep the number 1 pick, expect the Commanders, I would think, to move up to 2 to try to bring Caleb Williams back to DC. And then also, like, you look at this Commanders team, they have some things. Like, Terry McLaurin's a stud. Brian Robinson Jr., I think, is a good young running back. I know they got rid of some of their defensive players, but you still have some foundational pieces. You know, I think this Commander's job, it's new life, and it's completely different than where it was under Daniel Snyder, where you knew you were going to get money, but you knew it was going to be a clown show. So the interesting part here, too, is I was reading this, and I think this shocked everybody. I landed, and I had some Wi-Fi on the plane, but then like 30 minutes before the plane's about to land, the Wi-Fi goes out, and I see this alert that Bob Myers, the former general manager and president of the Golden State Warriors, and Rick Spielman are going to be leading the coaching search for the Washington Commanders. Now, Samter, I saw that Kaplan, the great Andrew Kaplan here at CBS Sports Radio, Cap, he put out a Photoshop of Draymond Green in a Commanders uniform. I think that Roger Goodell would have to suspend Draymond Green maybe every week if Draymond Green elected to go join the Washington Commanders, and obviously say that in jest, but with his relationship with Bob Myers. But, you know, they're taking a football mind in Spielman, and then they are taking a basketball mind, but someone that knows how to build a winner in Bob Myers, and you're looking for the right leaders for your next head coach. But really, I think the 2 jobs that are still up in the air, and we're waiting to see what's going to happen, are the Pats and Tennessee. And there was one report out there that Mike Vrabel would be interested in going to the Patriots. He's still under contract for 2 years. And for the Patriots, it's wait and see with Bill Belichick. And Belichick basically said this today without saying it. But if you just listen to the tone and the vibe of his press conference, Robert Kraft's going to have to fire him if he wants to move on from Bill Belichick. Because Belichick came out today and he said he would be open to giving up control of the roster and the player personnel side of his job and just coaching the team if that's what's in the best interest of the team, which it would be. And I kind of took that as he's not accepting a trade. You want to get rid of him. He's willing to still coach. He's willing to still check in each and every day and be the head coach of this team. Robert Kraft's going to have to fire him. And you know what? Everyone's been telling us now for a month that Belichick is definitely gone. I don't know if that's going to be the case. I'm not saying he's definitely going to be back next year as the head coach. But for 20-something years, there hasn't been a lot of leaks to come out of one Patriot place. So now, when you have one of the more important people in the history of your franchise, you're telling me they're going to leak things out to the media with Robert Kraft and Jonathan Kraft and Bill Belichick. I guess they're meeting today, so we'll see how that meeting does go. But I think this is going to be a little bit of a process. I'd hope we know by the end of the week, but I don't know if we're going to. And I think Belichick will be stubborn, and Belichick will basically tell Robert Kraft, I still want to coach this team, but you want to get rid of me? You're going to have to fire me yourself, and I don't think he's going to play nice and try to orchestrate a trade out for the New England Patriots. So that is the Black Monday kind of look at it from afar right now. And then also I did see that Wink Martindale, the defensive coordinator for the New York Football Giants, has resigned. And I think this is the least surprising news ever. Because there was an article not that long ago, like a few weeks back, that there were issues between Daboll and his defensive coordinator. And Daboll downplayed it, so did Wink Martindale. But usually when there's smoke, there's a fire, and clearly the actions today of Wink Martindale, even though they didn't fire him, but maybe it was trending that way, did suggest that there was an issue there, and what was reported a few weeks ago was true, rather than them telling us it was false and there was no issue between the Giants head coach and the Giants defensive coordinator. It is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Take a time out. We'll come on back. We'll update you on some of the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio with the News Brief.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
Alrighty, news brief time. Zach Gelb Show in Houston for the national championship game between Michigan and Washington. Let's start off with Aaron Rodgers. Do we ever go a week without Aaron Rodgers audio? Seriously. The guy has not played since the 4th play of the season, and each and every week he says something. This is Aaron Rodgers on what the Jets need to fix for 2024.
If you want to be a winning organization and to put yourself in position to win championships, everything that you do matters. And the bullshit that has nothing to do with winning needs to get out of the building. The exit meetings are important to just get everything on the table that's happened, flush the bullshit that you need to move forward away from, and then refine your focus moving forward.
So here's my question. What's the bowl bleep? This team couldn't block this year. You got hurt. And you provide all the drama, and you keep yourself in the news by saying erroneous things. Like, Samter, what am I missing here? Because this is now twice in, the last 3-4 weeks where he's been attacking the bowl bleep that goes on in the Jets organization. You know, I know there was something going back to the whole Zach Wilson thing, so maybe that's what he's referring to about some of the leaks with Zach Wilson. But this should not be detrimental. Zach Wilson and his feelings should not be detrimental to the 2024 New York Jets. As great as Rodgers is, and that's going to be, as he stays healthy next year, they're going to be competitive. They're going to have a chance to go make the playoffs, and they should make the playoffs. But, dude, like, you've been the one making this season a clown show. Like, if you just got hurt and then you went away and you didn't open your mouth every week, we're not constantly talking about the Jets and just saying, oh, this is the same old Jets, Moist Mike.
And that's the thing is, like, this is what, Twitter is saying the same thing. It's like, hey, calling the kettle black here. It's like, you want to talk
Twitter's even bashing him?
Oh, everyone's bashing him. Like, if you want to talk about the BS going on with the Jets, it starts and ends with Aaron Rodgers, right? Like, This year, Zach Wilson hasn't been a problem off the field. Garrett Wilson hasn't been a problem off the field. There hasn't been a single player who's been a problem off the field except for maybe Dalvin Cook, who had issues before he even signed with the Jets. Other than that, nobody's had any issues off the field or any kind of BS. There was maybe that leak earlier on about Zach Wilson that you mentioned, but outside of that, it's all been about Aaron Rodgers. So how Aaron Rodgers is saying, get rid of the BS, what he's saying is get rid of me. Like, it makes no sense, Rodgers. Come on. Look in the mirror. And then the fact that he has zero accountability and just zero ability to look in the mirror and see himself for what he is just laughable. And at that point, at this age in his career and his life, for him not to be able to do that is kind of frightening.
So there's a lot of times where Samter will put the ball on the tee and he'll just say, okay, go mash, go hit. I have realized the moment where I get to put the ball on the tee for Moist Mike, anytime it has something to do with Aaron Rodgers, you thoroughly enjoy going after Aaron Rodgers. And I'm not saying anything that you just said is wrong, but Rodgers really annoys you, I can tell.
It's not just that he annoys me. It's just that he has no self-awareness. And, like, because I used to be a Jet fan, I didn't really care that much when he was a Packer quarterback. But now that he's with the Jets, and because even though they're not my team anymore, I still have a place in my heart for them. Yeah. And to see him constantly just spouting nonsense, and it's not just about vaccines and about the media he just says random stuff, and he has no self-awareness about anything that he says or does. I'm very nervous about what he's going to say tomorrow on the McAfee Show in response to the Kimmel thing. He had a chance to respond to it today, and we have the clip of what it sounded like.
Yeah, I'll play that in a second. And it's amazing because I hate the Rodgers conversation because it turns into a political conversation. And I am the least political person on this planet. I hate politics. I hate both sides, the extreme one way, the extreme the other way. I detest it because it's just such a cesspool and there's no conversations and it's just yelling, I'm right, you're wrong. But the Rodgers-Kimmel thing, I know they have beef, but to basically infer that someone is a pedophile or knew about being on a list, which would involve knowing about underage people getting taken advantage of, is just so ridiculous. And when you throw something out there, whether you were joking or not, you better be right. And I don't think you joke about something like that. So Rodgers was asked on the whole Kimmel comments, and where do you go from here with those?
Your comment on McAfee last week actually became a lot of news. Do you want to address that any further? Do you have any regrets about what you said?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about it tomorrow on the show. Tune in.
You can't give us anything now? I mean, we're here right now.
He's such a douche.
Yeah, check me out tomorrow.
You know what? Mike Greenberg once said that it's a disservice to your listening audience and you can't be a good talk show host if you don't tease things. And I'm not saying you shouldn't tease, but I think if you're an entertaining talk show host, your listening audience will stay even if you don't tease. But Rodgers may be a great talk show host in the Mike Greenberg world of things because he just gave the greatest tease that you could give for the Pat McAfee show. Because you never know what's going to happen from Aaron Rodgers. Like, Rodgers, I don't think he'll apologize tomorrow, nor do I care if he apologizes or not. But it will either be him stepping back from those comments or him just doubling down. And even though the whole conversation with Rodgers is insufferable, I will say, as someone that does like some drama and like a heated conversation, how are you not going to tune into that conversation tomorrow? Let's go to Arthur Smith. He's now fired from the Atlanta Falcons. And this was Arthur Smith. We were talking about this right before the break on his anger at the Saints and Dennis Allen when they were in victory formation. And then Jameis Winston was like, we're going to hand the ball off to Jamal Williams, get him his first touchdown of the season.
Nobody, wants to end the season like that. But, credit to them. They made the plays certainly the second half. Got out of hand. You can do whatever you want. I just gave them my opinion about it, but it doesn't take away the fact that they beat us.
Sounded like he was crying there almost. Now, I think that was just a realization that he was going to lose his job anyway. But, man, what are you getting so emotional about? I know you're screaming, you're going nuts, so maybe your voice is a little bit hoarse, but that sounded too emotional for me. Let's get to the good audio here. Jameis Winston on switching from a victory formation to hand the ball off to Jamal Williams and getting that tutty for him.
I apologize to DA because the play was victory, but I also explained to DA that it was a team decision, and I think when you have a team morale, and I asked the guys, I say, guys, like, what do you want to do? We know how much Jamal means to this team, and I understood from DA's perspective, so I give him that. But DA didn't condone that at all. He didn't. However, man, we got an interception to the 1 yard line. So if we would have scored, would it still would have been disrespectful?
I love Jameis Winston, Samter. He's amazing. How this guy, who's the backup quarterback, gets an opportunity, right, in a blowout game where the Saints win and keep their season alive, but then it would be spoiled in a matter of seconds because you looked up at the scoreboard and the Bucs are up 9-0 against the Panthers. How he's the reason, and he's the guy in the locker room that forced this decision to change from just kneeling the ball down to getting the ball to Jamal Williams. That's just awesome, Samter.
The question I have really is because Dennis Allen's job was on the line. It seems like he's probably going to keep it, at least at this point.
I think he's safe.
Right. But does this kind of subordination, does this mean that the guys don't respect him and that they're not afraid of the consequences? Or is it just like a backup quarterback who's like, I really don't care. I want to hook up a teammate. I don't care if it makes my coach look bad. Or at the end of the day also, is this that maybe players kind of respect Jameis more than Derek Carr? So it doesn't mean a lot. I don't really care that they scored the touchdown. Right?
I think you're overthinking it, and here's why.
Yeah.
I think Jamal Williams is one of the great personalities and teammates that we
saw
have
that in Hard
football.
Knocks. He was great with the Lions.
Yeah, and that was the guy that led the league in touchdowns last year, if I'm not mistaken. And this year, unfortunately, new home, dealing with injuries, hasn't got in the end zone. I think it was more so the other teammates saying, guys, we should get Jamal a touchdown. Let's get him a touchdown to end the season. Let's get him a touchdown. And that, I think it's more of a reflection of who Jamal Williams is as a teammate than this being, they don't respect Dennis Allen as a head coach. Alrighty, let's keep it moving. So I did see this. Julian Love of the Seahawks There was a video posted by Greg Bell, who covers the Seahawks. He said, cigars but not playoffs in the Seahawks locker room after the last game rally win at Arizona. And then he tagged his publication, the News Tribune. Let's hear from Quandre Diggs about the young players celebrating with cigars after the game.
For those guys that get their first year in the NFL, their first taste of NFL football, I can't blame them, you know what I mean? But, at the end of the day, I think, just older guys, we expect more.
And here's Bobby Wagner, who, remember, got released and forced his way out of the Rams, who are now in the playoffs, to go back to Seattle because he thought they had a better team. Here's Bobby Wagner on young players celebrating with cigars.
It's a lot of mixed emotions, but you understand you got a young team, and as they progress in their career, they realize how hard wins are to come by, and so it's a balance.
Is that youth going on in there right now, would you say?
Yeah, for sure.
No victory cigar for you?
No, not at all.
I think it just is, like, you're a veteran, and you're expecting to make a deep playoff run with this team. I could see why you're not doing a victory cigar. You're a younger player. I'm not going to crush you for smoking up a victory cigar, but Julian Love's been around the league for a while. I had some success with the Giants last year. The part that I didn't get, though, Samter, so Greg Bell puts in that tweet once again with the video, cigars but not playoffs in the Seahawks locker room after last game rally win at Arizona. And then Julian Love tweeted out, insinuating that we are celebrating not making the playoffs this week, Greg. These cigars were given to me to celebrate the birth of my son, and I waited until the end of the season to share a moment with my guys. Did Greg Bell do anything wrong, the reporter, by saying cigars but no playoffs in the Seahawks locker room after their last-second win in the last game of the season up against the Cardinals? Like, I think Julian Love, who I like and I've talked to before, I think he's kind of overreacting here.
Well, listen, if you cover the team and you're in that locker room, you probably owe it to people and the players to investigate the cigar smoking. Ask, hey, are you guys celebrating? What's going on here? And then you tweet it out. If you're just tweeting it out just as a gotcha moment, then I guess I can understand that.
But was this a gotcha? I don't think it was a gotcha moment.
It kind of feels like a gotcha moment. It kind of feels like a, hey, you guys didn't make the playoffs and you're still celebrating with cigars. And that's kind of been the reaction. I mean, if you tweet it out like that just for fun, I guess, but to put that caption is kind of like saying, why are you celebrating with cigars if you didn't make the playoffs? I would imagine if you cover the team, you should probably at least ask. So I understand it, but it's still not a great look. I understand that you're celebrating the birth of your child. It is still just a little bit weird to wait until the last game of the season when you missed the playoffs to publicly do that in the locker room as soon as the game is over. Invite them to your house and celebrate. Don't do it in the locker room after you miss the playoffs.
I really don't care one way or another. That's just not something that gets me irate. Alrighty, last one here because I know we're up against it, but I think this is fascinating. On the Draymond Green show via The Volume, Draymond Green said he had a conversation with Adam Silver, and he was actually thinking about retiring.
I had a conversation with Adam Silver, commissioner of our league. I just told him, Adam, it's too much for me. Like, it's too much. Like, this is too much. It's all becoming too much for me, and I'm going to retire. And Adam said, you're making a very rash decision, and I won't let you do that. And I'm like, no, Adam, like, not really sure it's a rash decision. It's just all too much. You know, we had a long, great conversation, very helpful to me. Very thankful to play in a league with a commissioner like Adam, who's more about helping you than hurting you or helping you than punishing you. He's more about the players.
I actually believe Draymond Green was thinking about retiring. But when I further reflect on that, how much did he really learn in this absence of 14, 15 games? Because if you're saying it's too much, were you able to realize that your actions were wrong, or you were just annoyed by the conversation of what you think is a reaction or overreaction to what you did? And that's the part that I think is scary. Because I don't think people are going to connect and get through to Draymond Green, and I don't expect to be any different. There'll be some incident later in the season. You could guarantee it. So was him threatening retiring just, I don't want to deal with this. I don't need to deal with this. I've won. I've had all this money. I don't think I'm doing anything wrong. I'm just playing a role. And if that's the case, we're not going to see anything change with Draymond Green. Alrighty, that's a news brief. It is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Let me make Aaron Rodgers and Mike Greenberg proud. I will do a tease here when we come on back. We discuss the ups and downs of Josh Allen, and also, where is your trust level with the Miami Dolphins entering the playoffs? I think my answer may surprise you. Update time first. Let's get to the Ackman back in New York City. Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
On Black Monday, only 2 head coaching changes so far. The Falcons got a jump on the offseason as they fired Arthur Smith last night. He lasted just 3 seasons, going 7-10 in each. As expected, Ron Rivera out in Washington after 4 seasons, a 4-13 record, and new ownership made that move obvious. The Patriots still have Bill Belichick in charge. He said he would cede some control in the front office, but still a conversation to be had with owner Bob Kraft. The Panthers will have an entirely new front office with GM Scott Fitterer fired today, and Giants defensive coordinator Wink Martindale has reportedly resigned. The Lions are hoping to have Sam Laporta next weekend. The tight end suffered a hyperextended knee, but head coach Dan Campbell said there's an outside chance he plays. The Bills' Gabe Davis suffered a sprained knee last night. His status for next weekend still to be determined. The only Monday Night Football tonight, the national championship game in college football, which comes down to Washington and Michigan. The Dodgers and Teoscar Hernandez have reportedly agreed to a 1-year deal. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Hey, this is Bart Winkler inviting you to join me here on CBS Sports Radio for The Bart Winkler Show. Weeknights, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's back. Here's Zach Gelb.
All right, it's Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Coming up in 12 minutes, I will give you my official prediction for the national championship game. I am in Houston, and Houston, we may have a problem depending on who wins the national championship tonight. No, all kidding aside, even though I'm a Michigan fan, have much respect and much love for Kalen DeBoer and Michael Penix Jr., so can't wait to see how this game does play down between the matchup of these two heavyweights, Michigan and Washington. And it comes your way, and I believe kickoff's at 7:45 p.m. Eastern time tonight. I think it's scheduled for 7:30, but in the media notes that I have, it says the ball won't get kicked off until 7:45 p.m. Eastern. I remember a few years ago when the national championship game would be kicked off at like 8:45 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Eastern. So you get an earlier kickoff. I think they did that last year, and then it's carrying over into this year as well. You can stream the NFL, by the way, on Westwood One for free, sponsored by AutoZone. All season long, you can listen to every Westwood One broadcast of the NFL Live on the NFL app by asking Alexa to open Westwood One Sports on the Odyssey app. Get in the zone, AutoZone. AutoZone's free battery testing and charging is available for free at your local AutoZone. Get in the zone, AutoZone. Restrictions apply, and you could always follow me on social media at Zach Gelb, Twitter, Instagram, X, whatever you call it these days, ZACHGELB. If you don't do so right now. You'll see a lot of great behind-the-scenes content from before the game, during the game, and after the game tonight, the national championship, which I am here for, as I said. All righty, wild card weekend. And by the way, I don't know how you guys feel about this. Stu, thumbs up or thumbs down on referring to wild card weekend as super wild card weekend?
Thumbs down. No thanks.
Samter, do you refer to it as Super Wild Card Weekend?
I don't like the name Super Wild Card Weekend, but I do like differentiating it from the past Wild Card Weekends because there is an extra game. So I like the idea of something different. I just don't like Super Wild Card Weekend. It just sounds cheesy.
The only way that I call it Super Wild Card Weekend is if it's in a read. I do not believe in this Super Wild Card Weekend nonsense. I just call it Wild Card Weekend.
What about Wilder Card Weekend?
No.
Wildest?
No. Wild Card Weekend. Now, I did see Peacock has an exclusive streaming game, and they put your Kansas City Chiefs on the Peacock streaming game this year up against the Miami Dolphins. Do you have Peacock, Samter?
Stu and I are absolutely avid Peacock subscribers because of the Premier League. So I have Peacock, and it is a great idea to get Peacock because of soccer. But yes, now that I get to watch my Chiefs, I've seen a lot of people getting very upset about it. It's $5.99 a month. If you love your Chiefs, sign up for a free month or pay $5.99. It's not the end of the world. Watch your Chiefs.
Now, I understand both sides of the argument.
No, I don't.
But this is the NFL trying to really get things going with the times, and streaming is only getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and they're trying to make this work. So I like putting Mahomes and the Chiefs in there, regardless of the Chiefs aren't as great as they once were. It makes sense what the NFL is trying to do. Note, though, they did not put the Dallas Cowboys in there. Like, if they really wanted to make a big splash, because the most polarizing team are the Dallas Cowboys, they would have put the Dallas Cowboys in that spot. But you did put the league's biggest star in Patrick Mahomes in that game. Alrighty, here's your matchups. Browns-Texans, Dolphins-Chiefs, Steelers-Bills, Packers-Cowboys, Rams-Lions, and then on Monday night will be the Eagles and the Bucks. Let me just comment on the Sunday night game from last night. I thought that game was going to be closer than what people thought because everyone was telling you Buffalo was going to win. Miami had a legitimate shot to win the game. You could have argued probably should have won the game. But now you've seen this with the Miami Dolphins, where outside of the Cowboy game, any big game this year, they've been on the wrong side of it. And that's a problem. So going into the playoffs, I think what I'm about to say here is going to surprise some people. I should have no confidence in Tua. I should have no confidence in the Dolphins, especially after they lost Jalen Phillips and then also finally started to survive without Jalen Phillips, and they lose Bradley Chubb. But this NFL season has made no sense. And thankfully, we finally get Tyreek Hill going back to Kansas City because the NFL was a bunch of greedy pigs. They had to put that game in Germany this year. So it's funny how that works. If people want to kind of poke fun at the NFL as scripted, well, there's some evidence. They knew that they could put that game in Germany because they're eventually going to get in the playoffs. Chiefs and the Miami Dolphins. Samter, you're not going to like this. It makes no sense because of the weather and how bad the Dolphins have been playing as of late, and they can't win a big game. The Chiefs just haven't been that good this year. I kind of think in a year where the NFL makes no sense that we'll continue that theme in the playoffs. I believe the Dolphins are going to beat your Chiefs this weekend. I think they're going to take them down on Saturday night on Peacock.
Listen, I love Tua, and I want him to do well, but there's no chance. He has struggled in big games. He has struggled so mightily in big games over and over and over. There's no chance he's going into KC and taking out the defending champs. Zero chance.
But that's not Kansas City as they've been the last 2-3 years. The Chiefs don't have really any wide receiver. Kelsey's slowing down. Miami's going to have to score 21 points. Miami scores 3 touchdowns. I think they win the game. We'll take a break. We'll come on back. We'll touch on a little bit about Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills and also get to my national championship game prediction next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Rocking and rolling hour number 3 of our radio program. That's right, it is the Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. I'm coming to you live from H-Town, Houston. National championship game tonight. I'll be in the building, NRG Stadium, the Michigan Wolverines up against the Washington Huskies. Can't wait for the game. We're ready to roll. We're ready to see the game. And I'll give you my prediction. We'll get Moist Mike's prediction as well. We'll get Stu's prediction coming up in a matter of moments. But we do know our 7 playoff teams in the AFC, 7 playoff teams in the NFC. Playoffs? Playoffs? You kidding me? When we get to those matchups and we take a look at everything that transpired in Week 18, we know the Browns going to play the Texans. That's a 50-50 game. Dolphins play the Chiefs. I think the Dolphins are alive to upset the Chiefs, even though it would make no sense after what we saw from the Dolphins just last night. The Steelers play the Bills. You would anticipate the Bills would win the game, but you can't really trust the Buffalo Bills. But somehow, some way, when it looked like for a majority of the season they were going to disappoint, they were going to miss the playoffs, not only did they go 11-6, not only did they win the AFC East, but now they're the number 2 seed in the AFC playoffs. So all that takes is Baltimore, who's the best team in the league right now, going down in the divisional round, and the next thing you know, Buffalo takes care of business, and they could have a home AFC championship game. And then you also have the Packers-Cowboys, which is going to be awesome. Rams-Lions, awesome. And then Eagles-Buccaneers. I think that's the worst game of the weekend. Like, you could maybe argue the Steelers, Mason Rudolph, I know he's been better as of late. They have a good defense. But Eagles and Bucks, both of those teams, like, I'll give credit to Tampa Bay. Let's not crap on Tampa Bay. I was about to do that for a second. Baker Mayfield's been a good story. They actually won more games this year than they did last year. And last year they had the GOAT in Tom Brady. Guys like Antoine Winfield Jr., Levante David, they have been just phenomenal for the Bucks. And you've been able to see that. They win the division. Week 17 really meant nothing. I know they could have won the division in Week 17, but they knew in their back pocket they had the most pathetic team in the NFL this year in the Carolina Panthers. It's not like they had some great performance yesterday. Their defense did a great job up against a offense that has been incompetent, and their offense just didn't allow the other team's defense, which is also really good, to get a pick six or get a fumble recovery. You know, that game could have been a whole lot more interesting if DJ Chark just held on to the football, because he was at the one, reached out, and then the ball fumbled into the end zone and the Bucs were able to get a touchback on it. But this Tampa Bay team, they are a 3-point underdog, and it's kind of unfathomable that the Eagles are a 3-point favorite against anyone in the NFL right now. Because Philadelphia has just been, maybe in the last 5-6 weeks of the season, the biggest train wreck in the NFL. You know, you want to hear something crazy? You want to talk about a bad beat? A buddy of mine that I went to college with, Jared. He's actually Phil Martelli's nephew, and he's a local TV guy now. He does a good job. I'm a big fan of my buddy Jared Phillips. He placed a future, and he's an Eagle fan. He placed a future before the season started on the Eagles under 11.5 wins. Now, when they were 10-1, you would have never thought that he would cash that ticket. The Eagles, when they were 10-1, have only won one game since then. And now they're 11-6. So he ended up hitting that bet. But to lose to the Giants is one thing. To get blown out by the Giants, and I know A.J. Brown got hurt, and I know that Jalen Hurts had a finger injury, but for that game to be non-competitive at halftime, and you call off the dogs, and you know that your team has no shot, it just shows you that there's a bigger problem in Philadelphia. It shows you that there is an internal problem and a chemistry problem and a disconnect in that locker room. And at least A.J. Brown did talk about it last week. And he said it was on the players. He said it wasn't a coaching issue. But the more and more you see from this team, there is a disconnect not only with the players, but there's a disconnect with the players and the coaching staff. And the Eagles went from a team last year where everything was right. It was just greatness after greatness after greatness over and over and over again until they got a 10-point lead in the Super Bowl and they couldn't slam the door shut. But this year they started off 10-1. 10-1. And you had people bitching and complaining that 10-1, there were flaws, there were warts with this team. And I was like, oh, nonsense. You can't blow out every team. But those people were right. This Eagles team is a disaster. And quite frankly, I thought for sure before the season started, the Eagles were the best team in the NFC. You know, not by leaps and bounds compared to the 49ers, but I gave them the edge. I'm surprised Ryan in Santa Barbara hasn't called us up recently to yell and basically not understand any word he says, but just rub it in my face. But I thought the Eagles were better than the Niners. And I'll be the first one, I tell you this all the time. I'll be the first one to tell you I'm right. I'll also be the first one to tell you when I get it wrong. I'm not one of these talk show hosts that won't admit when they're wrong. But I was dead wrong on Philadelphia. I was 1,000% wrong on Philadelphia. And I thought this team had championship DNA. But I will not bet on the Eagles. I will bet against the Eagles until they go down. Like, I can understand that you make the argument that the Eagles will beat the Bucs on Monday night. I'm not picking it because this team just lost to the Cardinals and the Giants. Let me repeat that. They just lost to the Cardinals and the Giants. And 3 weeks ago on Christmas when they played the Giants the first time, that was not an encouraging victory. So there's no reason to believe in this Philadelphia team. Now, I will say this. The team I'm most intrigued about entering the playoffs are the Buffalo Bills. I went to college. I'm good friends. I was talking with them last night with Deion Dawkins and Tyler Medikevich. Deion's joined us before on this show, and Tyler's going to join us later in the week. And the elation I've heard in their voices after beating the Miami Dolphins last night to win the Bills their 4th straight AFC East championship, I'm really curious how far the Bills could take this now. Because the Ravens are the best team in the AFC. The Ravens are the best team in football right now. But we've seen teams before be dominant in the regular season, and then this is the beauty of a single elimination tournament. It's not the NBA where it's best of 7. It's not baseball, right? We got to win 4 games or 3 games, depending on the round. It is not hockey where you got to win 7. It's 1 win, you advance. 1 loss, you go home. And for the Ravens, you would anticipate when we're in Las Vegas, we're seeing a Super Bowl with Lamar Jackson in it. But if Lamar doesn't get there, and let's say the Ravens choke, I want to see if Buffalo could seize this moment and this opportunity. Because you saw the highs and the lows of it last night up against the Miami Dolphins. They were moving the ball. And then it was Josh Allen turnover, Josh Allen turnover, Josh Allen turnover. But then when they needed Josh Allen to be great, he was great. And in a year where we've seen so many quarterbacks get banged up and see their seasons come to a close, Josh Allen's still standing. And now we'll see how healthy Gabe Davis is. You know, the run game is starting to come alive. James Cook got to catch that football last night. But you got James Cook. You got playoff Leonard Fournette in the mix. Stephon Diggs. We'll see if they get him going. But this has been a team in Buffalo over the last few years. They were supposed to be the team, and the farthest they could ever go was the AFC Championship game. And the last 2 years they regressed, bowing out back-to-back years in the divisional round. And now, for most of this year, we already wrote off the Bills. And after the Chiefs' victory, leading into the Cowboys game, I said, I'm going to put a future on them to get to the Super Bowl out of the AFC. And they beat the Cowboys, and even though they had some sloppy performances up against the Pats and the Chargers, they still won. And it was sloppy up against the Dolphins, but they won as well. You know, the Bills, I just don't know what to expect out of them. Like, you could tell me the Bills lose this weekend to the Steelers, which I think would be shocking. But it's not like, oh my goodness gracious, shocking. Like, I believe most people will take the Bills to win this week. But with how inconsistent the Bills have been, I guess I would say it would not be inconceivable that Buffalo would lose. But then you could also tell me that the Bills are in the Super Bowl, and I would believe you just as much as well. And that's what makes this season of Buffalo Bills football so frustrating, but also still good because you have hope. It looked like they were out, but here they are now through all those ups and downs, and they're sitting as the number 2 seed. So Buffalo is a 10-point favorite. Oh, man, that's begging you to take the points with the Steelers. And usually when Vegas is begging you to do something, the other thing happens. But I don't know how you wouldn't plus the points right now with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I do think Buffalo will win the game. I'll see where I'm thinking about that one coming up on Friday. But Samter, you've seen a lot of quarterbacks. I want to see if you could get this. Who does Josh Allen as a player remind you of? Is there a quarterback that Josh Allen reminds you of? Just wondering. Yeah, I'm thinking of big, strong, and mobile. So maybe like Ben Roethlisberger could be one of those guys. Yeah, someone like that. Someone who's big, strong, and mobile, who doesn't need to rely on his legs, but can, but also has a strong arm and can take hits in the pocket, get out of it, and still make plays. So I was thinking about this last night, and I did think of Josh Allen just because, like you said, the big burly structure, but also being athletic as well and being mobile as well. But the guy that I'm thinking of is Brett Favre. Brett Favre was a gunslinger. Brett Favre took so many chances. Brett Favre would throw 2-3 interceptions in a game, and then Brett Favre would also throw 4 or 5 touchdown passes. When I watch Josh Allen, I see a lot of Brett Favre where he takes chances, and he makes a lot of mistakes, but you got to live with the mistakes because more times than not, you'll walk away at the end of the game saying, wow, even though this roller coaster ride was crazy, even though at times when it was spinning upside down, you thought that the roller coaster was going to come crashing, burning down, and that was going to be the end of you. But at the end of the roller coaster ride, you're like, oh, that's bleeping awesome. And wow, the magician did it again. That I really see, I'm talking about on the field, not off the field. I see a lot of Brett Favre and Josh Allen, Samter. So that's who I see. I thought you were going to chime in there and have a little back and forth, but that's fine. Anyway, let's get to the national championship game predictions for tonight. I'll start things off. I like Michigan to win the game. This game could go either way. I would not be surprised whatsoever if Washington wins. This Washington defense down the stretch has been criminally underrated. They are better than what they get credit for. Michael Penix Jr. has been one of the better players in college football, not just this year, but also last year. There was a big push at the end of last season for Michael Penix Jr. to win the Heisman. We know the 3 wide receivers for Washington are impeccable. Remember at the end of that Washington-Texas game when you had the injury timeout? That was Dylan Johnson, their running back. He said he's going to give it a go tonight. I do not know how effective he will be. If he's not in the game and Washington can't run the football, well, then Michigan should just blitz Michael Penix and blitz him all night long because they're going to be throwing the football a ton. Ultimately, people are looking at the Michigan defense up against Michael Penix Jr. I am looking at the Michigan offense against the Washington defense. That is what I think determines this game tonight. Michigan's going to run the ball early. They're going to run the ball often, and they're going to try to run the ball all night long. We know Harbaugh in a big game likes to draw up a trick play or two. Don't be surprised if Alex Orji throws the ball. They tried to do it last week, wasn't successful. But McCarthy, with his mobility, will use his legs a little bit. He'll make a big play in the game. But I really do believe the key tonight in the game is Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards. And Donovan Edwards has not been as good this year as he was last year. I think he has a big run tonight. Blake Corum is on the verge of having 60 touchdowns in his career at Michigan. He's at 59. Corum, the last 2 years, has been a touchdown machine. He's one of my favorite players ever in college football. And this dude finds the end zone like no other. I am going to trust Michigan to run to the national championship trophy tonight. I like Blake Corum. I like Donovan Edwards. And I like the Michigan Wolverines to win by a score of 31-24. I think we're getting a great game tonight. A little bit of a high-scoring affair, Michigan and Washington. But ultimately, Michigan will control the clock and control the tempo of the game, doing what they do best, bully ball, physical in the trenches, run, and win the Natty tonight. Stu, what do you got in this national championship game?
Yeah, it's funny. I've doubted Washington this whole year. I thought they would lose to Oregon in the Pac-12 championship game. I thought they would lose to Texas. But with that said, I just think Michigan is too tough. I don't think they've played anyone as good as Michigan. I think Michigan will kind of dominate that line of scrimmage. I don't think they're going to blow Washington out or anything like that, but I do think they win maybe 7 to 10 point. Pretty comfortable win for the Wolverines.
Okay, so one prediction to Michigan, another prediction to Michigan. Now all the pressure is on Michael Samter, because you know this and I know this. If we all three of us pick Michigan, I think we are setting it up for Washington to win the national championship. So Samter, what say you?
Oh, man, we are screwing Jim Harbaugh.
Oh, no.
We are screwing him.
Please take Washington. 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 Take Washington. For my sanity, take Washington, gosh damn it.
Okay, I will be honest. My heart,
you like Michigan.
My heart says Jim Harbaugh and Michigan.
Do you have a heart?
What the hell is that supposed to mean? Wow.
I feel like on the radio, hold on, let me be clear about this. On the radio, I don't think you have a heart. But when I see you off the air, I think there's a kind, thoughtful, and heartfelt person that is Michael Samter. But I think on the air and off the air, you're two totally different people.
I mean, that hurts. That hurts. I like to think
well,
that
you
my
picking
on-air...
Michigan hurts me right now.
No, I like to think that my on-air takes are rooted in fact and rooted in objectiveness, and they're not heartless or cruel. They're just sports takes based off of information in front of me. However, if that's not how it comes across, then so be it.
You.
So be it. Cruella de Vil is my new name, apparently.
Yes, go ahead.
You know what? Here's the thing. I really think that I want Jim Harbaugh to win a title, but Michael Penix is such a good dude, and he's such a great story, and he's a lefty, and I'm a lefty, and I love lefties. There's something that, like, Michigan hasn't faced that type of air attack yet, right? They faced a lot of good rushing teams, and yeah, Ohio State had a really good receiving core and running game, but not a great quarterback. They haven't faced an elite level passing quarterback. Jalen Milroe, same thing, elite, but he's more of a runner.
And they're a great pass defense, but you are right. It's not like they faced these great quarterbacks this year.
So it's going to be interesting. Yes, they have a great pass defense, but is it a great pass defense because they haven't faced great quarterbacks? Or is it a great pass defense because that's just what they are? It's going to be interesting. You know what? They're going to be challenged in ways that we haven't seen yet. And Michael Penix can throw that ball deep. And just like, a heavyweight fighter who might get his butt kicked throughout the game, but then have 2 or 3 really big punches that just knocks the guy out, Michael Penix can just have a couple of those throws. So you know what? Screw it. Let's go Washington.
Yes.
34-27. Michael Penix is going to throw for over 350 yards and 4 touchdowns. I'm going 34-27. Washington Huskies. Let's go to end the Pac-12.
Good job.
My favorite conference. Michael Penix is going to do it. It's going to happen. Kellen DeBoer. And there you go.
Wow. Thank you. You bailed us out from all going on Michigan. Because if we all went on Michigan, they absolutely would have lost. Now, I think it's truly a toss-up 50-50 game because Samter spoke to the sports gods there by trying to level the playing field, taking Washington. So Stu takes Michigan. I take Michigan 31-24. Samter, I guess he is going with Washington is what I take away.
No.
From that
The more I talk about it, because I want Harbaugh to win, and I think that I was making my Harbaugh prediction based off of.
Are you changing your pick now?
No. So
okay,
I was initially going to pick Michigan, but then I started to realize that it's because I really want Harbaugh and Michigan to win one. I think Washington's the better team. I think Washington's going to throw the ball all over the field. I think Penix is going to look incredible, and at the end of the day, I really have faith in Michael Penix to throw the ball against a team that's been untested. They might be great, but they've been untested in that backfield with this kind of firepower. So I talked myself into it, and I actually now really convinced myself that it was my heart trying to tell me that Michigan was going to win. No. My mind is telling me it's Michael Penix Jr.
All righty, Zach Gelb here with you. Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio, live in Houston for the national championship game tonight. We got some pro football to talk on the other side with a little no-huddle offense.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Touchdowns, sacks, upsets, and last-minute heroics. Another NFL Sunday is in the books, and we've got you covered with the biggest plays and sound bites from another wild week in the National Football League. It's time for No Huddle Offense on the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty, live in Houston for the national championship game, Michigan and Washington. It is the Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. We do got to get to No Huddle Offense, and we start things off in Indianapolis, where Texans fans are very happy because they punched their ticket to the playoffs, and also the next day the Jaguars would lose to Tennessee, so the Texans are AFC South champs. But the end of this game, there was a lot of controversy, as all they needed was 1 yard. It was 4th and a yard, and Shane Steichen dialed up this play.
As big a play as you'll have all season. 4th and 1 at the Houston 15. Minshew in the gun. Minshew to throw. Minshew swings it out to the back left side. It's incomplete, and the Texans take over on downs with 1:03 to go in the fourth quarter. What a stop. Colts can't complete it. Texans have it.
Yeah, I wouldn't really say it was what a stop. I get it. It's the home broadcast, the euphoria. You know you're going to the playoffs. The play call was actually set up to succeed. As Gardner Minshew threw the football, it was not a great throw, but the young running back had two hands on it, and he dropped it. But back wasn't Jonathan Taylor, and it wasn't Zach Moss. And I know Jonathan Taylor left the game with an injury, but then he came back, and he had a wonderful performance. But how is Jonathan Taylor not getting the football, or bare minimum, because you could use him as decoy, being on the field when you need a yard and your season is on the line? That is something I just can't settle for. And it's kind of fitting that the Colts season started with them disrespecting and mistreating Jonathan Taylor, and it ended with them not giving the football or even having their best player, not just best offensive player, their best player on the field. Crazy. So,
and Tyler Goodson had 6 catches on the season. How are you throwing it to him? Forget him being on the field. Why is he there, and why are you throwing to a guy with 6 catches?
You're not wrong. But once again, he should have caught it, but he shouldn't even have been on the field. You need to have Jonathan Taylor on the field in that spot, bare minimum, being used as a decoy. Bare minimum. But man, for what was such a positive season for the Colts, I wonder how much of this is a carryover effect. Because you got to question Steichen, who had a really good year with the decision at the end. And I know that Anthony Richardson comes back next year. He could stay healthy. He was looking like he was going to be a promising quarterback. But I'm fascinated to see what the Colts do moving forward after this adversity. And Goodson, to his credit, after the game, he took all accountability, he faced the music, and that's someone that I could root for. Kind of like the Marcus Williams situation where he whipped on that tackle in the Minneapolis Miracle, and Stephon Diggs wound up in the end zone. I know that was expected out of the safety than the running back for the rest of their careers, but Marcus Williams turned out to be a good player in the NFL. I hope that's the case for Goodson as well. And now for the Texans, it looks like they're building a contender. I don't care how their season ends. I don't care if they lose to the Browns by 30. What they were able to do this year, it just shows you when you hire the right coach and you draft the right quarterback, anything is possible, and it could turn around rather quickly in the NFL. Jacksonville and Tennessee is our next stop. Let's get Trevor Lawrence trying to go air Trevor at the 1-yard line. That was 3rd and goal at the 1. They passed it, and then 4th and goal at the 1. They ran this play.
Lawrence under center. He takes the snap. He tries to sneak. He reaches the ball. I don't think he got it in. He used his 6'5" frame to try to do a basketball stretch. No signal. He lost the ball, and the Titans have it. Wow, what a stand. A goal line stand by the Titans.
And we find out after the game that Trevor Lawrence audibled it. I don't get throwing the ball on 3rd down, but then on 4th down, you try to break the plane by going over the top. You did that from a full yard out, which is just crazy. Half yard, okay, not a full yard. And by the way, if you're watching us on youtube.com/CBS Sports Radio, I didn't change any light settings from before the show. It is just getting really dark really quickly here in Houston. It's been raining all day, and they have a beautiful setup here inside our CBS Sports Radio Odyssey studios in Houston. It looks like they're going to get a rainstorm that I've never seen before. I'm looking to my right now, and it is so cloudy, so dark in the sky. I feel as if I'm in a movie scene as the world is about to come to an end. Kind of crazy. But anyway, congratulations to the Texans. They're AFC South champs, and the Jaguars, they are, outside of the Chargers, the most disappointing team in football this year, and this year's on Trevor Lawrence. I understand he got hurt, but there were games where he was healthy, and that offense just did not show up. And with the season on the line, you're about to get in the end zone. Maybe you get the 2-point conversion. You tie this thing up at 28-28, have a tie game in a game that you had no business being in because of how lethargic you were for most of the game. You audible into a jump over the line, over the line, and try to get a full yard out, go airborne. Just absolutely makes no sense. Packers, go Pack, go, are back in the playoffs. First year without Aaron Rodgers, no problem. The Packers return to the postseason. Here is a Jordan Love 12-yard pass to Dontavian Wicks, who had 2 touchdowns in the game.
Down to 2. Here's the snap. Love throws over the middle. Got his man. Inside the 5. Reaching for the end zone. Touchdown. Dontavian Wicks beating Kyler Gordon on a slant off the left side. And the Packers have a 13-6 lead.
There was a big question about 2 months ago. Would Jordan Love be the quarterback for the Packers next year? He will definitely be the quarterback of the Packers next year. Now, I'm not ready to say he's going to be elite. He's going to be a top 10 quarterback. This year, I said going into the season, the wins and losses for me were irrelevant with the Green Bay Packers. At the end of the year, I just wanted to see enough signs that could suggest that Jordan Love was going to be the guy. And clearly he's done that, down the stretch improving, and also getting this team to the postseason. And now all eyes are on the Bears, too. You lost both games this year to the Packers. You have the number 1 overall pick. Are you taking Caleb Williams? Are you taking Drake May? Or are you trading back and keeping Justin Fields? Cowboys and Commanders, Dak Prescott, you find CeeDee Lamb. You find the NFC East Championship. This made it 28-10.
Prescott's in the gun, back to throw, looking right. Scrambles left, still got it, scrambles back right. Throws it in the end zone, caught for a touchdown in the back of the end zone by CeeDee Lamb.
So now the Cowboys enter the postseason. The Cowboys will be welcoming in the Green Bay Packers. Mike McCarthy will be welcoming in the team he coached for, I believe, 13 seasons. Dak had a good season this year. I usually, Dak's easy to root for, the person, but Dak Prescott, I think, is just a good quarterback, not a great quarterback. Regular season this year, he was fantastic. Now it's about taking that next step in the postseason. Because we talk about how in the AFC, the team to beat is the Ravens. Well, in the NFC, the team to beat is the 49ers. Now the Cowboys are the 2 seed. So they don't have to see the 49ers until the NFC Championship game. I don't think the 49ers will go down before then. But if they do, you have no excuses. So for Dallas, Cowboys fans are taking like a bow now. That's the wrong approach. You got to get the job done in the postseason and bare minimum get to your first NFC Championship game since the 1995 regular season. Let's go Bills, or the 1995 season. Let's wrap this up with Bills and Dolphins. Here is Deontay Hardy, a 96-yard punt return to give the Bills a little life and make you want to shout to tie this game up 14 apiece.
Jake Bailey punts this one away. It's a wobbler, backing Hardy up to his own 5. Gets to the 10, to the 15, through a hole to the 20, 25, 30. He could go 50, 40. They're not going to get him. Deontay Hardy going the distance for the touchdown. And we're an extra point away from a tie ball game.
I was extremely disappointed with the Dolphins last night because Josh Allen, from 75 to 80% of the game, tried to gift-wrap you a victory. And at the game on the line, it kind of reminded me like the Kansas City game in Germany. You had a chance to go win it or tie it, and you threw an interception. And Tua almost threw a pick the play before, and then threw another pick. It's just inexcusable. And it makes no sense, but for some reason, and we'll see if I keep this energy and I keep this belief on Friday when we make the official picks. In a year that makes no sense, and I don't like the Chiefs this year, and I don't trust the Chiefs. It wouldn't shock me if Tua gets the job done with Tyreek next week or at the end of the week at Arrowhead on a Saturday night game on Peacock. All the Swifties are going to be getting Peacock subscriptions and all that jazz. And I'll tell you, Buffalo, how they're the 2 seed is wild. It really is, because they look like they were dead after that Eagles loss. But they found a way to not only get in the playoffs, but also win the AFC East. What a choke job down the stretch by the Miami Dolphins. Alrighty, that is a no-huddle offense. This is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We'll come on back from Houston, the site of the national championship game. We will put a bow on the national championship game in the college football season, and also we got a big reunion weekend in the NFL. A lot of reunions happening on Wild Card Weekend, where the NFL wants me to call it Super Wild Card Weekend. But I will protest against doing that because I just think it's stupid to call it Super Wild Card Weekend. I think it's kind of stupid to say Super Wild Card Weekend. Update time. Let's send it back to our New York City studios. Here is the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
Well, it's been a relatively quiet day for Black Monday. Just 2 coaches were fired. One coming at the stroke of midnight last night when Arthur Smith was let go by the Falcons after going 7-10 in each of his 3 seasons on the job, while the Commanders fired Ron Rivera after 4 seasons. They made the playoffs once in his first year, but never reached 9 wins. No word from the Patriots right now on Bill Belichick's future, though the 71-year-old is open to relinquishing some of his front office duties should he remain on the job. The Panthers already fired their head coach, and now GM Scott Fitterer gets the boot as well. Lions head coach Dan Campbell said there's an outside chance that Sam Laporta plays next weekend after suffering a hyperextended knee yesterday. The Bills' Gabe Davis, also his status to be determined after a sprained knee last night. The college football season comes down to Washington and Michigan in tonight's national championship game, while the Dodgers have reportedly come to terms with Teoscar Hernandez on a 1-year deal worth over $23 million. I'm Rich Eck.
Hey, this is JR. Let's hang out weeknights here on CBS Sports Radio for my show, the JR Sport Brief, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick. We're from the Backstreet Boys, and you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
It's time to answer Ask the Pros question of the day, and it's brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Ethan in Portland says, Zach, what are the biggest keys to this national championship game tonight? You could submit a question by tweeting at CBS Sports Radio or at Zach Gelb. Using the hashtag #AskThePros, think O'Reilly Auto Parts. For all your car care needs, get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. I think the health of Dillon Johnson in this game is big. The running back for Washington who got hurt in the final minute of the semifinal game. If he can't be effective, then Michigan, who got home very easily up against that big Alabama offensive line, I would anticipate with their defensive line and then also their secondary, which is a very athletic secondary, is going to be blitzing Michael Penix Jr. all night. So that's something to watch, the health of the running back. And then if he can't give it a go or can't be effective, who else steps up for Washington? I think the biggest key to the game is Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards just eating up clock, maintaining the time of possession, and running and running and running and running. We've seen Michigan in the second half against Penn State just say run, 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 and that's it. And not even throw the football. They're going to throw the football tonight. But Corum and Donovan Edwards can control and win this game for Michigan. And then the third thing, I don't believe special teams is that much of a concern for Michigan even after the Rose Bowl, where they could not field a punt to save their life. And the reason why I say that, as long as you field the first one tonight, if you field it cleanly tonight, I don't think it's a problem. But in the Rose Bowl, that's an outdoor stadium. The sun was setting, and I think that could have impacted both punt returners. Tonight, you're playing an indoor stadium. So I do believe the special team punt return storyline for Michigan is a little bit overblown. But I will say the trick play factor, you get into a game like this, you know both these teams tonight, you empty out your playbook, you find a way to dial something up that you haven't run before. And to see who's going to hit on their trick play, whether it's an Alex Orji pass, whether it's a fake punt by Washington, whatever the circumstance is, you know DeBoer is super duper aggressive. And that's another thing. in what probably will be Jim Harbaugh's final game as the head coach of the Michigan Wolverines, his alma mater, will he match the aggressiveness of Kalen DeBoer? Because DeBoer is a super-duper aggressive coach, even though when you talk to him, he's like the nicest man and the calmest guy that you'll ever interact with. And Harbaugh, when he needed to, with under 4 minutes to go, 4th and 2 backed up, he dialed up that dump-off pass to, it was, I believe, Blake Corum, and it got called back a little bit, but it got a first down, and there was a bad block by Michigan, and he wasn't afraid to go for it in that spot. Now, that was with the game on the line. Late in the game, Harbaugh was aggressive. I wonder if Harbaugh kind of empties out everything tonight and is a little aggressive from the start. As I said earlier, I like Michigan to win the game. It won't surprise me tomorrow if we come on in here and Washington wins a close one. I don't think Michigan's blowing out Washington, and I don't think Washington is blowing out Michigan. I think we're getting a good game tonight, and I think that this is going to be Michigan 31, and it's going to be Washington 24. Now, when we go to just an NFL thing to wrap it up, there are some great matchups this weekend. But when you look at these storylines, sometimes, right, when you have that joke, oh, the NFL is scripted, you get these storylines and you go, how did the NFL win again? But that's what the NFL does. You get Tyreek Hill this weekend with the Dolphins. Now, he's not going to win the MVP, but he had an MVP quality season. He's going to Kansas City, where the Chiefs have been struggling and the Chiefs have been missing Tyreek Hill. You have the Rams and the Lions going up against one another, where Jared Goff was basically 2 deals in one, and he was not the main thing that the Lions were trading for. The Lions were trading for draft picks. And I don't want to say Jared Goff is a franchise quarterback, but Jared Goff has done more than what was expected out of him with the Detroit Lions. And now you have Stafford, who was their franchise in Detroit, who now has won a Super Bowl with the LA Rams in his first year with the Rams, coming back to Detroit for his homecoming. And the Lions have won their first division championship since 1993 and are looking to win their first playoff game since the 1991 season. Tremendous storyline. And then, obviously, how about them Cowboys? You have the drama Dallas choking Cowboys who are awaiting to return and prop back up right in their playoff time, where this is when they start to be who they are and who we always know they are. But the Cowboys are led by their coach now, Mike McCarthy. And even though Rodgers no longer with the Packers, this would have been a little bit more bonanza. But now you have the Cowboys going up against the Packers. There are some great reunion storylines this weekend. And not that the NFL needs any more theatrics, not that they need any more drama or flair to their product, because the NFL is just sensational. And we know that there's always a story each and every week. And just when you think you have it predicted, something crazy happens. Like, how many times a year we say, this is the team to beat? And then that team loses the next week. It really is crazy. But now you get these 3 storylines, and they're right with the 6 games that you got this weekend. The 2 on Saturday, the 3 on Sunday, and then the 1 on Monday night, where from a intrigue and from a storyline and tell the story all throughout the week, Roger Goodell and the NFL, they have to be jumping up and down like fat kids in a candy store, because those 3 storylines, to just get one of those, like if we just had just Tyreek going back to Kansas City, we'd all be like fangirls here. But to now get Tyreek going back to Kansas City, Stafford going back to Detroit, and McCarthy saying, come on down to Dallas. And Green Bay, let's see what you got. Man, that's going to be fun. It really is. And, you know, I'm elated for Packers fans. I know we're on the Fan in Milwaukee and across a few, in a few stations across the wonderful state of Wisconsin. And I feel really good for Packers fans, because the last 2-3 years, it was ugly, it was sloppy, it was uncomfortable for a lot of people. when you have a franchise legend, but you have a regime that's trying to replace your franchise legend. And the fact that they look like they got it right, it's pretty damn remarkable. Now, I'm not ready to say that it's going to be Favre to Rodgers to Love, but they are giving you a reason to believe that Jordan Love could be the guy. And the reactions to these 3 games, I think it would go like this, where Tyreek beats Kansas City. You know Tyreek is going to run his mouth and say how much the Chiefs miss him. Stafford beating the Lions, I think, would be the most gut-wrenching because of what Lions fans have been through and how much they cheered for Stafford, as they should, when he won a Super Bowl with the Rams. But the potentially most embarrassing one, even though there's not a lot of players on those Packers teams that were coached by McCarthy, you have a few, but the Cowboys are a better team on paper than the Packers. And with those 3, I think the most is on the line for McCarthy. And there's even been some speculation that if McCarthy goes one and done, or how he loses in the postseason, maybe he ends up losing his job. Alrighty, that is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. I'd like to thank our friends here at CBS Sports Radio and Odyssey in Houston, Sports Radio 610 for hosting the Zach Gelb Show today. I'd like to thank them so I can get to the national championship game tonight. I'm going to go hop in an Uber, make my way over to through the rain to NRG Stadium. Thankfully, there's a roof on that building. You can follow me on social media at Zach Gelb, and I'll get you all the behind-the-scene actions for the national championship game. We'll talk to you tomorrow in New York City, everybody. Enjoy the game. We out. Bye-bye. Peace.